Mr. Hackett, you have such a global company. You have a supply chain all over the world. It can't be easy when we talk about trade tensions for you.
No, and I'm welcome. I'm really appreciative to be here. I wanted to say hello to the Prime Minister. I thought she did a great job. I got to visit with her last May. And, you know, I've been in the CEO role at Ford for about 16 months, but I ran another company for 20 years, another global company, Steelcase. And in that time, you know, low interest rates, we had the advantage of that. We had the advantage of emerging technologies. We didn't have inflation. And I never thought about trade. It was really a second or third level issue. How much do you think about trade now? Well, it's top of mind, and the issue is that it needs to be updated for all the reasons that prompt the discussion. But the key in the negotiation strategies is to find the equilibrium. So business, you hear them talk about they count on certainty. Equilibrium, I think, is a better term, which is you can invest based on the back and forth. In this case, we're kind of frozen. A lot of businesses aren't sure, and that's not good.
How do you stay relevant as a car company? We talked about climate change. We'll talk about climate change. We'll talk a little bit about smart cars, driverless cars. What's your #1 priority?
Well, the connection to the globalization is the fact that the world's working on CO2. This is why I'm so proud to be part of this conference. And Ford's advantage in the future is that it's got in its hands a technology that's transformative. There's actually 3 of them. The first is the nature of propulsion, which is moving from gas to electric. Might surprise the audience to know that less than 5% of the market right now is electric, but it's estimated to be 30%. The second technology has to do with the robotics. You've heard about AI. The vehicle's so smart that it can drive itself in the future. And the third, which isn't as public, is the notion of a cloud-based system over the vehicles. So the confluence of the 3 of these things, Francine, mean that we can design transportation systems now differently, and a system that enables or empowers a better CO2 outcome.
These are cars for the future. How much is trade and tensions a distraction when we talk about the end of multilateralism?
Yeah, so in Ford's specific case, it produces most of its vehicles in North America, for example, in country. So the metals tariffs were very negative to us. Most of the supply was coming from American suppliers, so it was over $1 billion consequence. We export our Lincoln brand, and China is very successful. We now had to think about, you know, of course, a 25% tariff for that. It makes it very difficult. But I'm optimistic that there's an equilibrium in the course of this back and forth that, of course, we can be really successful in.
Who will own and develop the cars of tomorrow? Is it car companies? Is it renewable companies? Or is it actually tech companies?
Well, I think that it's a series of players that have to work together. In fact, the irony today is they do, in the analog world, let's call the analog world before the cars were really intelligent, the fueling system and your engine have a really close relationship. The chemistry of the fuel and the way the engines operate are highly choreographed. In the future, the utilities are going to be building renewables to, power electric vehicles. But this cloud-based structure, I want to emphasize it again, is something that hasn't been here. And what it allows us to do is the vehicle in the city can now have a connection. I mean, in a discussion yesterday with Prime Minister Trudeau, he said, I get it. We're sitting at a traffic light late in the evening when there's nobody at the intersection. Why does the red light stay on? In the future, the vehicle will be mediated through intersections like that with this smart system.
But how big is the scale of that? Will it be in all big metropolises? Yeah. Can it go beyond that?
Yeah, so if you're an investor looking at this, it's over $11 trillion. It's why the tech companies are so interested in our business, because it's a systems play of the smart technology of the vehicle and the environment coming together. And basically, as you're building infrastructure now in the future in your countries, you'd be wise not to cut and paste the old system. But it's not rocket science per se. I mean, it's talking about building bandwidth, so the vehicles can communicate. 5G is really important. It's about making smart intersections so that the navigation of the vehicles are safe. And then I think a third idea early is parking. If we can have the vehicle communicate with parking spaces. Francine, you lose more fuel efficiency trying to find a parking place than you do being stuck in traffic. So, and it's because they can't be married together. We can do that with this system in the future.
I mean, this is a system that, of course, is extremely important, but how much time do you spend thinking about that compared to new models, old models, how you crack into China, the kind of the day-to-day running of the company?
Yeah, well, that is the challenge. It's why I took the job, is that you have to think about the business in two states at the same time. All the profit, all the talent, we're in the existing business, and we're really committed to that. Like, we make the #1 vehicle in the world, is the F-150 pickup truck. We sold close to 900,000 of them. And that business is relatively healthy by model line. Some markets aren't, so we're trying to fix that. The other state of the business is the one we're describing, where there's no profit yet. The technology's new, the design of the system's emerging, but it's where all the future will be. So a CEO's job is you have to straddle these two things, and you can't really let one go for the other.
You were saying you've been 16 months in the job. Is it a disadvantage or an advantage to come from a non-car making company?
I get that question often, and the way I think about it is what's common about my history in the last job I have is it's industrial, it's global. We sell through a distribution network. In fact, they were highly controlled by family interests. I had that then, I have that now. But I'm able to look at the car business as a combination of vehicles and technology, which is what's defining it in the future versus just thinking about it as a pure vehicle. In fact, think of it this way. The cars have a number of computers and software in them today, but the way they are in the future, they're really rolling computers. And so you have to think of the business differently because of that.
Will I have a driverless electric car by 2030 or sooner?
Oh, for certain. In fact, Ford's committed by 2021 to be in market. But this is a marathon. These vehicles will be super smart, and they learn. So you got to think about the way they learn is by being driven. And so when they hit the market, they'll be safe. They probably will have narrow assignments in terms of what they can do. But over time, they'll expand. And the great thing, as we're sitting here in the conference and you hear others talk about serving the world, this is going to allow us to do things because the vehicle is intelligent, like getting goods to people that couldn't get it, helping people have jobs because they don't have transportation today. Or my mother, God bless her, she had trouble getting to the doctors at the end of her life, someone to take her there. This kind of assistance will be available with that technology.
I mean, the industry is going through huge transformational changes. Are we going to see consolidation? Do we need so many car makers?
Well, the 08 era, if you were following it, the industry essentially was bankrupt. Ford didn't take any kind of handout, very resilient. We had a wonderful CEO that helped restore the vitality of the company in that time. But as I observe it now, there's too much capacity maybe in the wrong places. And that's why the trade question is so important, is the footprint for production was more malleable before these trade structures. Now we're going to have to deal with lanes that we can only distribute in.
But will we have to deal with trade tensions for the next 20 years?
Well, I don't think that's good for us. I mean, in fact, I would not
But you think it will last 20 years?
Well, trade will always be here, but if you're asking the question, will we be out of equilibrium? No. I think there's going to be news about NAFTA being closed soon. Europe and North America have made tremendous progress as it relates to vehicle discussions. And now we have to deal with China.